Welcome to Building Great Sales Teams, a show dedicated to making sales teams tick, tick, boom.
I didn't have a playbook starting out. I had to learn everything the hard way. The good news is, you don't have to.
Great sales teams are not recruited, they are built, block by block. Let's get to work.
Consulting now.
Okay.
So just those three branches. Yeah.
And you're like barely 25, right? I mean, you're.
No, I'm 35. Thank you, though. Appreciate that.
That's so awesome.
So we're going to start the podcast with that line.
Okay.
You're barely 25, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So I'll jump into the intro here, and we'll get rolling because we're already having great conversation. So I don't think we need to structure it any which way or anything. All right, let me just jump in here. All right. Oh, wait. How do you pronounce your last name?
Spaight.
Spaight. Okay, I was going to butcher that, so I'm glad I asked you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, guys, we got Harry Spaight. Harry serves others by mentoring people on growing their business and sales. Harry's a keynote speaker, coach, and author of Selling with Dignity, Your Formula for Life-Changing Sales Results. And if I might add, honestly, it's a formula for life-changing results in general. And he's also the host of the Sales Made Easy podcast. Harry, welcome to Building Great Sales Teams. We're honored to have you.
Oh, Doug, it's so awesome to be here, man. I love the energy already. And why did you say what you said? Because I totally believe what you said about my book is all about what you said. I couldn't even say it any better. So why? Where does that come from?
Well, I'm only 100 pages in. I'll be honest. I'm 100 pages in. I actually lost the book in one of my book bags. As soon as you booked the podcast, I started reading it and I couldn't put it down. And then I lost one of my book bags, and I have like 3 of them. Okay. And it ended up being under the seat of my truck, but which it's a little compartment thing. Yeah. I have a clean vehicle, but
it's next to the French fries.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I'm 100 pages in, and I was just like, man, I haven't resonated with an author this much in a long time. And I really believe in a lot of the things that you're teaching. So I'm glad that your company reached out to us about the podcast. I'm very excited. And so on that subject, how would you say, because most of the people that are listening to this are either just starting out with their sales teams, they want to learn how to grow one, or they have, maybe like a 20-person sales team. So they probably read a bunch of different sales books and stuff like that. How is this one different?
It's all about the people. It's not about strategy, tactics, and so forth, right? So I've done the sales teams, leading sales teams, building sales teams from 1 to, not huge, but 15 or so. But I came from a ministry background. So talk about servant leadership, that's all I knew. And culturally, that's not typically what happens with a publicly held company.
Not at all.
They're about numbers, right? It's all about the numbers, spreadsheets, activity management, and so forth. And I just try to work around that and do the best I could with playing the system to some degree. But it was really all about people that meant something, even when I had to let people go. Which happens in sales, and you give them an opportunity to help them perform better and so forth. But sometimes the best sales job people give you is when they're interviewing, right? Yeah. So to answer your story, to me, it's all about the people and to be better at working with people, and that ties into our lives. It ties into our families. You can't be one that sells with dignity and then go home and mistreat your wife or mistreat your children, right? So it's really all connected. What's your thought on that? I love that.
And it's very true. You and I were talking about it before we got kicked off here. Early in my career, I was about 23 when I started my sales company, and had a lot of success early on, all about the numbers, boiler room type mentality. And that worked for somebody that wasn't building a family. That worked for somebody that wasn't aligned on core values and didn't understand what he wanted to leave in terms of legacy, right?
Right.
But it only worked for so long. It was a temporary, I guess, satisfaction, right? It didn't create any long-term sustainability as far as a company was concerned or a sales culture was concerned. And so a lot of the things you talk about in your book that you preach not to do have temporary results, right? But long-term, what you're talking about in terms of building a proper culture and selling with dignity, long-term, I feel like that's going to win. And it has for me once I changed my direction.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I mean, I love what you're becoming aware about it means, right? It's just as a young man at 23, I mean, what can you possibly know other than what you've been taught, right? It's not like you have this great history of observation and you say, I wonder if why this is, right? We just do at that age. We just do pretty much
Just
what
react.
we're told. This works. Just do it. Go make it happen. And I hear this in sales all the time. It's just, you got to make it happen. You just got to go make it happen. I used to say something similarly, but it was when you built a team around you and you had people that had shared the same values or similar values about working hard, taking care of people, and so forth. Well, part of making it happen was getting out and speaking with people.
Yeah.
Right. Just getting in the mix to me was huge. And then good things would happen. So I believe in the line, but I also believe in the substance, like you said, behind it too, right?
So I'm really curious. Well, not curious because I have read the first part of your book, so I know most of this, but our listeners haven't. So um, tell us about the journey up to selling with dignity, because you didn't start out in the traditional sales entry level salesperson space. You started out in the ultimate sell, which is the gospel, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I started out in the gospel. I mean, I came out of high school looking for purpose in life. I felt like I found it. And then I spent the next 15 years or so pursuing that and ended up getting married with a believer. She had similar adventurous values that I did. So it was like, if you're going to do something, I felt like go all in, right? So
Yeah.
we ended up getting, we traveled to, like, this is 1990. We were in Berlin, Germany, shipping away. That was then called the Berlin Wall. I don't know if anyone knows that anymore. But we took part of that just after after the wall came down. They were still standing, obviously.
Wow.
And then a couple years later, we were in St. Petersburg, Russia, after they renamed it from Leningrad. And so communism had just collapsed. Boris Yeltsin had said, we're going to be free. And with that experience, we then went really adventurous and decided to go try living in a foreign country for a couple of years, which we ended up doing with the Dominican Republic. Wow. So long story short, our lives changed for the better when we traveled. We saw different people, different cultures. Our understanding of humanity was vastly different from what it was going in. And I really encourage international travel because your eyes just open up compared to the way if you live in one country like we do in the States,
right,
versus Europeans who travel and get different cultures all the time, right, when they're crossing borders.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just an incredible experience. And then when I got into sales, it was me coming from that background, so I stood out. I say, it's not the fish out of water. I say I stood out like a missionary in a sales bullpen. I don't think there is anything more opposite in life than a missionary in a sales bullpen. I hadn't sworn in years, since high school. And, I would say things like crap, darn, fudge. And then I was just like, wow. And I wasn't offended by it. It wasn't like I was too holy for it, but it just was different. to start, to hear that is like, okay, so the F-bomb is, it's
Normal
not
here.
fudge anymore.
It's like the here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, but it was fun. It was a great learning experience for that. And I just tried to bring, and it didn't work out right off the bat because I didn't really know. I did what you did when you were 23. I just fell in line because I had no knowledge whatsoever of business acumen or sales, and that kind of sales. Selling, a better life was one thing, but selling with a quota is different. So anyway, long story short, had to do some major league adjusting to figure this all out. It took several months, but I did.
I can imagine so. And the education you must have gotten abroad, traveling and selling the gospel, and that is an incredibly hard sell, especially after a country's been a certain way for so long, and that is literally hidden from them, and they get in trouble if they read it. I can imagine some of the people you're talking to don't even want to look at it. Don't even want to be around it because they think that they're gonna deal with some type of judgment from the government if they do that. So,
and then there was the other side. So there's definitely that, and then the other side was so much was going on underground that people were just happy that it was open, which I found, like, as a communist country. So I'm curious about China, for instance. Right, because people are told to believe a certain way. Your government is God. Right, there's nothing more important than the government, and you can see how some of these communist countries act. They just it's not about the people. They'll sacrifice their people for the sake of the government without any qualms at all. Right, even in East Berlin, I mean, it was in the 1980s. Someone was shot and killed trying to leave their own country. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, it's just, this is the stuff. I mean, I mean, in the 1980s. We have no idea. Right? This is 1980s. Yeah. And so, and this still goes on, right? It's still going on in China, I'm sure. No offense to all the Chinese nationalists that are listening, but I mean, these countries can be brutal, and to see, these people that just are going to stick with their faith in spite of what's going on around them is really shows you the power of faith, to say the least.
Yeah, I can imagine. So having all those experiences and then going into American sales and copy or B2B sales at that. So tell me what that was like. You go from literally saving people's lives and their faith and their souls to now you've got to, it almost feels like peddling these machines.
It does. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was a huge, I don't want to say it was a step down because it was a dream. I wanted to get into sales. Right. Because I had a janitorial business. I don't know if you came across that in the book.
Yeah, I did.
I didn't want to carry keys and mops and buckets and, do floors anymore and all that.
Y'all were grinders, man. I mean, because you were doing your janitorial business and you were pitching the gospel every day. You know what I'm saying? So I can't imagine. I imagine you didn't have a moment.
No. In fact, and I look back at what I did, and I look at my children who are now early 20s and say, "Yeah, you have no idea. They don't know my past life. There's no way that I can describe it." But anyway, to answer your question, that whole, once you see the bigger picture in life, then you get way beyond all of the idiotic things that people argue over and are jealous about and feel like they need to stand on top of their little mountain and so forth. It's like,
and plant the flag.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, so it's not like I'm any better. It's just that the world educated me to some degree,
it's
right?
perspective.
The cultures, exactly. And so getting into sales, I didn't take it as personally, and I could just remind myself big picture things. And this is about people. Again, it took me several months to figure this out, which looking back was really pretty quick. But in the middle of it, when you're being asked every day, what are we selling today? What are you going to close today? Who are we talking to? Is like, and I'm getting barraged with this stuff, and I didn't know what good looked like. I didn't know what bad looked like. I figured that zeros on the board were not good, and that's what I was doing. But looking back now and saying, well, it took me about 5 or 6 months to ramp up where I started making sales. Heck, that wasn't bad at all. But in the middle of it, it seemed like eternity.
Yeah. Right? So I think there's a few good points you're bringing up. And one of them is, the micromanagement, you know what I'm saying, can be exhausting in itself, right? Sales is an emotional business if you let it be, right? And like you said, you didn't take it personally. So even though you were throwing up zeros initially, and you were probably dealing with a lot of rejection, I mean, you were already used to that back in the day. Like it was easy, and you were used to working your butt off for probably 40 to 50 hours a week in your business, and then another 40 to 50 hours a week as a missionary. So I can imagine you were kind of set up to be a salesperson in a sense, because you had that grind already, right? You were used to being told no, or being, I mean, maybe this is a strong word, but persecuted for your faith. You're in foreign countries that don't believe that, right? And so a lot of rejection and a lot of hard work, which is, something you deal with initially in sales. And a lot of people never get past that cusp because they don't want to deal with that anymore. You know what I'm saying? And so it sounds like you were able to get past that.
Yeah. I mean, so people like me, we want to be liked. Okay. So, I mean, we're servant minded. We serve others. We want to be liked. Right. So we're not, it's hard to differentiate the two from a person that's serving to one that doesn't want to be liked, right? Yeah. It's just like they go hand in hand. So if you go to this restaurant and you can tell servers that like people and servers that just want to get paid.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, 100%. I was just at a restaurant the other day. The server clearly just wanted to get paid. I mean, no smile, no how are we doing? I cracked a little joke, nothing, right? And then you got others that are going to want to, join you at the table because they love your energy, right?
Yeah.
So I'm of the type that wants to be liked, and I'm not really competitive. I would play sports, and I know this sounds crazy, with friends, and I felt like I wanted them to win because there was more joy in watching them win than me winning. As crazy as that sounds. I struggled with I just, it's sort of, it's like you want to be like, I played hockey. I want to be the guy that gave the assists. I wanted to set up the nice pass play and have someone score, and they got the accolades, and they'd look at me and wink or something like that. Right.
Well, you learn that later in life, that there's that feeds your soul more than you winning yourself. Right.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, playing rugby in my early 30s. And I wasn't the guy that scored. I was the guy that set up the score, and I was good at it, and I loved it. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
And most of the guys, the younger guys, the ones that were in their 20s in the military and stuff like that, they were the ones that were like all about scoring, all about their stats and all that. And I was just like, I'm good right here throwing the assist. You know what I mean? Setting you guys up. But when I was younger, I was the same way. I wanted to win. I wanted to be number one. You know what I mean? But as you get older, you find more value in that. So you learn that at an early age, it sounds like.
Yeah. And again, I don't know if I was really aware of it. Right. It's sense. Like you look back at life. And so like this whole thing about serving in sales, I said it. I remember saying it, but I still wasn't as aware of it until years later that I built my career around it, because I wasn't, when I said it on the drive going home saying, I need to serve. I mean, I don't have the business acumen. I don't even know how to close. I don't get what I'm doing, but I can serve. And I'll just keep serving and see where that takes me. And then I kind of forgot about it, right? But it just became part of my mantra. and you just, it was like whatever, unconsciously conscious. I forgot what that whole thing is.
No,
right?
it's
Where
a very
you just
real
do
thing.
things without even thinking. But then looking back, I said, yeah, I was doing it there. I was doing it there. And it was really pretty interesting to see how that all played out in life, and when it didn't play out in life, when I just strayed from it, right? Due to whatever, right? It's like you see someone else succeeding doing something, you try something, and then you say, nah, that's not me. So I've definitely made the mistakes of trying different things, but when I kept coming back to servant mindedness is when the most success I had in life, everywhere.
It makes a lot of sense. What you said is you didn't realize you were doing it when you were doing it. You decided to do it, and then you kind of like just started building your business, and that was subconsciously there.
Yeah.
It's a very real thing, because when I decided to start getting into consulting, I was like, I need a system. I need a platform in which to audit these companies based on. And so I developed Kodak. Well, I was able to write Kodak in about 30 minutes because I had been doing it for the last 10 years, you know, and all it is an acronym for compensation, opportunity, development, operations, and culture.
So you're looking in, you're watching it unfold when you're writing it.
Yeah.
Right? You don't need to think
flows.
about it. It just, it's like you see it right in front of you, like you're watching a movie or something.
So I got to imagine that's what writing this book was like for you, and it just kind of like flowed out because it was all your experiences over the last, 15, 20 years. And you had been practicing these principles so much that when it was time to put them down on paper and kind of tell that story, kind of just flowed out of you, I hope.
Yeah, it did. It really did. And it was like I was watching it. And I didn't know when, if anyone's out there thinking about writing a book, I didn't know that this would be the experience.
Yeah.
That I would be watching the movie and just writing it, right? You put yourself in the zone, so to speak, and, whether a couple of minutes of prayer or meditation and say, look, help me get my thoughts together.
Yeah.
And then, you just reflect, and it's like, wow. And so I can relate to what you're saying, right? Once you know it and you see it, it's real easy to write. It's the stuff that people they have to think about and imagine. I'm sure that's much different than what I wrote.
Yeah, I've got so I'm in a business network called Apex, and the platform for Apex is building your machine, and the machine is your authority, which is what you're doing right now as well with your book, your podcast, and so there's a lot of early 20s guys in there, and so they've had a lot of success in their business, building their businesses and everything, and now it's time for them to take that next step in building their machine. So they've got to write the book, which I'm currently doing right now. I'm writing a book right now as well.
Awesome.
And I got to imagine it's so much harder for them because their experiences are, like this, and maybe mine are here, and then, yours are here, what I'm saying? So I got to imagine as you get older, it gets easier to write that book on a certain subject because you've had 20, 30, 40 years of experience in it, whatever the case is. So
it seems logical, right? But I think a lot of us probably do what I did, which is come up with the idea and then wait 10 years or longer.
Absolutely.
So the fact that you're doing it at a young age, I commend you for it. And
I appreciate it.
It's, the younger authors I met that are just, you write what you know, right? It doesn't, you have your audience, you bring value. Doesn't mean you won't write again. It's not the only thing you'll ever write, and it's like, when you're around those types of people and you see how simple it can be, it's just like, what was I waiting so long for?
Yeah. What was I waiting for?
Waiting
exactly.
for perfection, waiting to die and come back in another life. I mean, who knows? But some people just don't do it because they overthink, and it really doesn't have to be that way.
Absolutely.
I mean, like kids, like my son, who is early 20s, 21. He was a scrawny pencil of a kid, right? And then he starts working out, and now he's just, I don't want to mess with him type kid, right?
He's a
he
beast.
is ripped. But he's thin. He's still like 150 pounds, and he's 6 feet tall, but he is ripped, right? Washboard, abdomen, and so forth. So I said to him, I was like, you're a walking book. You do realize this.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what are you talking about? And so it's just those stories about where you can say, this is my journey. This is where I was. This is where I am today, and tie it in with other stories of things you learn in life, which he's got a lot of them. Trust me. From bad experience of learning life the hard way. But these are things that we all have, right? We don't have to overthink. We all have these stories, and sometimes it's just putting ourselves, as Jim Rohn said, work on yourself. I can't put his accent, his twang in there, but he talks about working on yourself. And if you can find the time where you just say, I'm going to just reflect and work on myself, work on my writings, work on my book, my creativity, it's a whole different, better world, in my opinion, when you can start doing that. What's your thought?
So one of the conversations that I want to have more on this podcast, and I'm glad we're getting into this, because I've had so many conversations outside of the podcast that turn from building great sales teams to building great people, and what I mean by that is I'll be talking with another owner that I'm consulting with, and he'll be struggling with communicating to his sales team certain things, and I'm like, well, what do you do in your life that makes you successful? And give them that formula. You know what I'm saying? Like, why does building great sales teams just have to be about, like you said earlier, the numbers, the marks, the amount of clients, the amount of phone calls, the metrics, all that tactical stuff? It needs to be about making better humans in the process too, right?
Right.
So a lot of the stuff that we go out and we learn, or we read, or we learn the hard way, we need to be transferring that to our people in general. Whether it's your network, your friends, your family, but in this case, your sales team, right?
Yeah.
And so
that's hard, you realize.
It's incredibly hard because
Yeah,
you have to get vulnerable, and you have to tell them why you feel that way.
Yeah. Right, because you're talking about a leader, and most leaders don't. I mean, I don't know about most, but whatever. There's a high percentage of leaders that don't want to do what?
To be vulnerable.
They don't want to show that, hey, I make mistakes too, right?
Yeah. And I was that person in my 20s, 100%. I had the suit, I had the look, you know what I mean? I had everything together, and I didn't at all. And now in my 30s, I'm more vulnerable. I go on podcasts and I talk about, my unfaithfulness in my 20s and my divorce and all that type of stuff. And it frees people to come into my circle and let me share that experience with them, so that they either don't do the same thing, or they already have and they know they can come back from it. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, let's get a little tactical here. What are some ways that you think that, current business owners with sales teams can, I guess, help their people sell with dignity? You know what I mean? You have a kind of a 1, 2, 3, or is it more about the mindset?
Yeah, I mean, the mindset is the 1, 2, 3. I mean, I think sales is almost all mindset, except you have to ask for the business.
Right.
Right. I mean, this is where there's people that fall short, is that they do a lot of the good things, servant-mindedness, but they don't feel like they can ask for the business, unfortunately.
Okay.
And, that's where a guy like me, or like, take me on the sales call, right? Because I don't mind asking for the business. You've earned it. Right. So when you earn it, you've got to ask. But to answer your question, I think if culturally, if you just have a culture where you say, we're going to do the right thing and do the right thing, then and you don't put up with, we're not doing the right thing. And like every deal is good when they're not. Right. When you know that something is being exposed as being dirty, then you have to end it. Right. Yeah. But I think it is established with the culture of the company. What's important? Now, I'm not a holier than thou guy by any stretch. Trust me,
Mm-hmm.
I have made the mistakes. I've overcharged people,
Mm-hmm.
and then I felt dirty,
Yeah.
right? It's like, this is not win-win. This is taking. I took advantage. Now I'm going to find a way to give some of it back, whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's just because it's learning, right?
Yeah.
It's
part of it.
right? If it's the problem is when you know and you stay doing it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so the culture is people, and I didn't come up with this. Scott McGregor, he does this thing, people over everything.
Okay.
People over everything is really as simple and as pure as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
When you start thinking that way, people over numbers, right? If you start treating people as their value is limited and it's just about the numbers, then that's not good anywhere, and it's not good in sales, and it's not good with your clients, because your clients, this comes through in your clients, and I've seen it, right? Where years ago I was in a situation where we had a very, very nice client. They had lots of technology from us. They're spending a lot of money with us. And we had this little $2,000 issue.
Okay.
And I'm a big picture guy. I said, $2,000 or $100,000 a year. 2,000, 100,000. Right? 5 years, 500,000 for $2,000. It's simple, right? Solve the $2,000 issue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our minutia leader was all about the minutia, all about the data. Says we can't lose money on this $2,000 problem. We can't lose money. So instead, we lost the entire account. So over 5 years, you just threw out $500,000.
Yeah.
But your $2,000 is whole. How does that make sense? But this is where
the vision comes into place.
Right. And the way you treat people, the way you treat your salespeople, the way you treat your clients, it's not different. You can't say I'm going to treat my clients one way and my salespeople another. It shows up, right? It always shows up. So coming from a place of putting people, understanding their value is tantamount, I think, to running a successful culture, right? Taking care of people, like this idea of not paying salespeople unless they sell something.
Yeah.
Okay, commission only, that works in some businesses, but if you want people around, I mean, I did this commission only thing. I pretty much had to breathe in a mirror, and I got a job, right?
Yeah.
What good is that, right? Their turnover is massive. So if you want quality people to stick around, give them something. I'm not saying you have to pay them $1 million,
Right.
but make it where they don't have to sweat over paying a couple of their bills every month because they are trying to do the right thing. When you put the pressure on that they have no income, and then you want them to always do the right thing, well, you're setting them up to fail in one way or the other. And those types of people would rather them fail morally than in business. That's really, I mean, that's what it comes down to, in my opinion.
That makes a lot of sense. We a year ago, we enacted a $500 a week base against commission, and we knew it wasn't much, you know what I mean? But we're a commission only company. Our whole company is driven by commission. There is no recurring revenue. There's no, none of that. We have to make a sale in order to operate every month. And so, and I've been doing that for 12 years, so I'm used to it, right?
Yep.
It's not my North Star at all, because I know that the success will come, just like you said, if you take care of the people. And it took a long time for me to learn that, and it took a lot of not getting a check some weeks and not getting a check some months to put this policy in place, right?
Yeah.
But since then, the people that I've had, the core group, probably 80 to 85% of my people, whether it be staff or sales, have been with me for at least a year or more, which in my business, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's it used to be 70% of the Salesforce turned over.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Commission only, door to door. I mean, this is the lowest
It's
of the
brutal.
low in sales positions. Yeah. And so the fact that we've been able to turn that tide has been huge.
Absolutely.
And what you were saying earlier about selling with integrity, selling with dignity, one of our core values is we operate with integrity. You know, so it's communicated from early on, you know, in our core values, in our posters on our walls, that's how we operate. And if you operate outside of that, then we're going to have an issue, you know. And typically we allow it to happen once, you know, where it's blatant that they took advantage of a customer or something like that. We make the customer whole. And then, you know, we allow that to happen once. We have a formal write-up and everything. And then if it happens again, they're gone. You know, it's usually a 2-strike policy, because once you do it again, like you said, you're aware of it. You know, the code of conduct, you know how we operate, and we don't operate like that. And honestly, the way that we hire now, I haven't had to deal with that in a long time.
Yeah.
Because they already know what kind of company we are, because the messaging in the ad is in there. And then when they get on our company-wide calls, it's there. You know what I'm saying? And it's constant from the staff, from the VP of sales all the way down. And so we're constantly auditing people when they come into the company, making sure that they align with our core values.
Yeah, I love it. Well, so your expectations then are that people are going to stay for a year or two, right?
I mean, more now. We've whittled it down, because you know, we decided to start operating on core values about a year ago. That we really dialed them in, we laid them out, and we said, this is it.
Yeah.
You know, and we were introduced to core values from an individual named Thomas Keenan. And he wrote, you know, we're talking about cursing. He wrote a book called Unfuck Your Business, you know?
Yeah.
And
I'm good with cursing now, by the way. I'm far removed from the mission world.
Well, yeah, I mean, this podcast has a explicit on it. But he wrote this book, and the book is all about core values. And now if you operate on them, it's going to be uncomfortable initially. And we went through that. We went through about 8 months of that. But the last 4 months have been fantastic. And the people that are with us now have gone to where they've only made the $500 base for months in a row. But now they're making 15 to 20 grand a month. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So they dealt with the hard part, and they went through it because they aligned with us. Yeah. And they believed that they were working towards something greater than just their own check, you know?
Exactly. I love it. Yeah. And I'm excited to correct, like, so when commission only is where you have a future and potential, I'm not against it. Right. What I am against is hire everybody, survival of the fittest.
Right. Yeah.
Very few people get the love, and you know, burn and churn, and those people are just not treated. But when there's, like, I would look at again is that, like, there's some companies in real estate that, I mean, they're all commission only, but there are others that some will really take care of the people, and others don't care, right? You obviously care, so that when you can lay out, I'm going to coach you, I'm going to help you hit your goals, right? Understanding what your goals are, and I'm going to help you get there. And we're going to give you a little bit of something, but it's not going to take long. It's sometimes sales is a sacrifice to get into it. It's not like you're making 100 grand in your first 6 months, right? And people whenever used to hire, and I still, you know, periodically do, people will say, so how much you want to make? So 6 figures. When do you expect to make that? It's like, do you right out of the gate?
Yeah.
After a year? like when? What is the ramp up to make 6 figures in your mind? You know, it's not going to happen in month 1. It's not happening in month 2 or 3, right? But it takes some time to build up a client base and, you know, funnel and so forth.
Pipeline,
so, right?
100%.
But yeah, I really like the core values, building your business on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for us. Yeah. So I have a note in here to ask you about the diamonds nearby story, but I went back through the book and I couldn't find it. Yeah. But I'm going to ask you anyways. Can you tell the listeners that story real quick? Because there was a reason I highlighted it.
Okay. So it was a story written back in the 1800s. And this fellow who, it's about the diamonds being ultimately where a farmer sells his land because he sees the value of diamonds and he goes in search for diamonds, ends up dying tragically. The people who buy his farm see the diamonds, find diamonds. So the diamonds were right under his nose the whole time. So I tie that into sales, that we're always potentially looking for greener pastures. My territory isn't, my town isn't, whatever. It's not as good as so-and-so. They've got it made. They've got everything. I've got nothing. And I just ask is like, if other businesses are succeeding in your piece of the pie, wherever that is, can your business succeed there as well?
Yeah.
Right. And it's really that simple. And if the answer is no, like for instance, if you're trying to sell technology in a plot of land that is just farmland and there's no population and you're trying to sell stuff for servers or whatever, it's probably not a good fit.
Right.
But once you're in an area where there is technology, are you taking advantage of the opportunity there? Or are you always looking? Because people that go from one thing to another never find their happiness. They rarely find success. I've seen it for years and years. People job hunting, what do you call it? Hopping.
Yeah.
Every year. I mean, 12 jobs in 13 years. I've seen it. It's like, how do you ever make money doing this? How do you ever build a reputation doing this?
Yeah.
You can't. Your reputation is, I'm going to hop jobs and, I'm going to take my clients all the time. I mean, I just don't think that is. I'm not saying you have to stay in the same place for 20 years, but you do. I feel like you're missing out on opportunities when you move so much that you can't build something that endures, right?
There's so many examples of that. One, the biggest thing that whether you're an entrepreneur or a salesperson, you need to learn is wherever you go, there you are, right? And typically, if you're a top performing salesperson, you can be a top performing salesperson anywhere. Doesn't matter the turf, doesn't matter the product, whatever the case is. If you have good disciplines, you know what I mean? And that's too often when it happens, when you don't have good discipline. And so you need the perfect scenario, the perfect product, the perfect turf in order to be successful, right? And I saw it with my company. We were selling AT&T Uverse, right? And we were selling Uverse when it was the only whole home DVR on the market. So you could pause in one room, play in another.
Yeah.
And nobody else was doing that. So we were killing it. And then DirecTV started doing their whole home Genie. And then Time Warner had a whole home DVR.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden our numbers, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we were able to maintain and grow eventually because we had somewhat of a foundation, but it wasn't that good yet. So, I mean, and there's another saying that comes to mind: the grass is greenest where you water it.
Yeah.
If you keep looking over the fence at the other grass, your grass that you have is going to die. Same thing goes into life, right? Into your marriage. If you don't sow into your marriage, it's not going to grow. You know what I mean? Exactly. If you're always distracted by things going on outside of your marriage or other women or other, work or whatever the case is, you don't sow into your marriage, it's not going to grow, Yeah, totally. And it typically takes our 20s to learn that. You know what I mean?
Well, and it can take, again, awareness can come at, and sometimes it never comes.
Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately.
I mean, it's just, how many, again, no offense, I'm not trying to pick on people. I've known people over the years, especially in the faith that I was in, people were on their third and fourth marriage.
Yeah.
And not even looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
The problem is always with the other person, 100% of the time. And they would pass along, because I used to do all this counseling and so forth. And it's like, can we, trying to tactfully bring up, it's like, can we look at working on ourselves a little bit? Right. And it's same is true in business, right? Same is true with salespeople and sales leadership, where we're blaming sales leadership as our problem, the owner's our problem. It's like, can we take any of the blame? Can we look at all and make, as Jim Rohn would say, can we make ourselves a little bit better?
Yeah.
Right. What will that do? And the way some people view authority. I mean, a lot of salespeople, I don't know if you're like this, but we're a little bit rebels, right? I mean, I was a missionary, but I was a rebel, right? That's why I did what I did, right? Because, people don't just pack up and go live in the Dominican Republic and live in a grass thatched roof and have all kinds of bugs in it and so forth. And, like, that's not normal, right? We're a bit adventurous, rebellious. So when authority speaks to us, we're like, yeah, I'm going to take that with a grain of salt, right? Yeah. I don't really think you're that serious. Oh, you were serious.
You know a little better.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where I was going with that, but I mean, I know it was a great point, but this is what I do is I sometimes forget my points. No. But this idea that, so I was tying it in. So we're a little bit of rebels. And I was talking about the person that goes through 4 marriages and then starts still looking for the perfect solution. We can still look for the perfect boss. We can look for the ideal company. Guess what? It's not out there. There is no perfection out there. Someone's going to have a bad day. Someone's going to be disgruntled. Someone's going to say, we're paying you too much, or we got to cut back here, or we're not going to pay you until we get funded ourselves, or whatever they say may rub you the wrong way. Are you going to go every time someone rubs you the wrong way? You're going to go pack up and go somewhere else. And I just think that's silly because perfection. And that's my wife. She stayed with me for a long time. She knows perfection does not exist.
She's married to me. No,
exactly.
I'm the same way. No, it's funny you say that. I've got a story for you, but
okay. What is it?
We're gonna run out of time here. So
okay, all right.
I'm gonna start a new question at the end of every podcast. You're the first person I'm gonna do it on. And I love that it's you because I feel like you've got this dialed in.
Oh.
So the question is, have you thought about the legacy you would leave behind? And what does that look like to you?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I love the question. So the legacy is live for your purpose. And you show whoever is around you. Like I have kids. Mm-hmm. I'm showing them I'm living my purpose. When we don't live our purpose, we let life direct us instead of directing life. Mm-hmm. And this came, I've lived my purpose for many years and I stopped living my purpose. So I can speak both sides of this. When I lived my purpose, I was the happiest, most fulfilled, best ever. And then I stopped living my purpose and then I became like disgruntled, lost, and then it's like, wait a minute, I'm not living my purpose. And then to say I can now show my children, because I lived my purpose when they're really too young to know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then now they can see what my purpose is. It's all about serving people, making the world a bit better by serving others so that they can, have successful businesses and successful lives, right? Tied in together. They can see that. I'm hoping that they can make similar decisions throughout their life instead of life happening to them. Right?
I love that.
And I think that's unfortunate is that I just read this statistic because Mondays used to drive me crazy years ago. Mondays. And I've always looked at, since then, I've looked at Mondays as like 1/7 of my life. Okay. I'm not a math genius, but I do know there are 7 days. Monday makes up 1 day of the week. That means it's 1/7 of my life. Why would I not love 1/7 of my life?
100%.
Right? So I'm looking at this thought and I read somewhere that like some ridiculous number, 70% of the population doesn't like Mondays. Heart attacks on Mondays, strokes on Mondays, sickness more started on Mondays. And it's like, what the heck? Why? Right? It's our life. Right? It's our life. So why would we wish it away, hate it? Just things we do just don't make sense. So whenever I catch myself in that mindset, I want to snap out of it immediately. Yeah. What's your take?
Well, I mean, I love what you're saying because it's so true. If you're living your purpose, Monday is just another day that you get to live your purpose and you get to help others in your case. And So when I was looking at the cover of your book, I noticed the hands shaking.
Yeah.
And, it just reminded me basically, excuse me, how I feel when I am living my purpose. I'm in a flow state, right? And I had this trip a while back that on the trip, I got to pour into others. I got to be around like-minded individuals. And I got to see these amazing things happen with a mentor of mine, right? And just every conversation was just an amazing conversation, about, development and mindset and pouring into each other and what we're doing at home with our families and how we're leading them and everything. And so I was in a flow state for the whole trip. And it very much reminds me of the cover of your book, because that's what it feels like. If I could describe the way that I felt it in a picture, it would be that connecting with other people and living your purpose. And that's what it looks like when you're living your purpose. You're almost glowing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's such a great example of that.
So
yeah.
Great. Yeah.
So you're definitely headed in the right direction, brother. First off, how can we pick up a copy of your book? I think I just went did I order it? No, I went on Amazon. I want to say it's on Amazon, correct?
It is. But if you want to, I could probably send you a link that if your listeners want.
Yeah, I could put it in the show notes. That'd be great.
In the show notes, and we'll give them a discount and a signed copy.
Oh, wow. That would be amazing. Yeah, okay. I'm going to have to get one of those then. Yeah, for sure. Okay. No, that's great. And where's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
You can go to my website, which is harryspaight.com, and you're going to see the spelling of my name somewhere in the show notes. So
absolutely.
That's easy. And Selling with Dignity is going to put me there, and find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Feel free to connect. I try to provide value wherever.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's all about that.
I appreciate it, Harry.
It's been a
appreciate
blast.
you coming on the show.
I got to get you on
Yeah,
Return
I would
Favor.
love that.
I'm rebranding my podcast, and I knew you and I spoke about this, but I figured it out that everything is Selling with Dignity with me. So my podcast name is going to be Selling with Dignity. So we'll get you on that. And, I want to know more about the core values, some of the lessons you've learned, and
that'd be fantastic.
It's a great conversation. So really grateful for you having me on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an honor. Thank you so much, Harry.
All right, my friend.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Building Great Sales Teams. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. Remember, great sales teams are not recruited. They are built block by block. Until next time.